some other countries, such as, for example, Southeast Asian countries, you would have a lot of support and enablement from governments, for example, that truly support the development of that new industry. That reminds me of what the Singaporean government, which is something I'm quite interested to, but I won't elaborate on, is currently doing. And I know that Mr. Lau has been involved in that kind of topics, unless I'm mistaken, but I think I have a good memory. And I would like to have your feedback, Mr. Lau, about what's currently happening, maybe a very quick breakdown of what's happening, for example, in Singapore, on the support they're currently implementing, which is something I see as very positive. I myself was in the Middle East a few weeks ago, and I've been amazed to see that some, let's say, some countries are putting in place to facilitate the development of Web3 projects. And I would love to use your eye here about what's happening in Singapore.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to share that. Well, Singapore, it is a very prudent country in terms of the fact that our governments are very protective of investors and in the entire finance industry, right? But that said, the Singapore government has been in the forefront with regards to embracing Web3. And also by putting policies in place, people to come to Singapore. So our approach is that it is an evolving area. You can't stop it, right? You need to embrace it. You need to have strong policies to govern the ecosystems and develop a nice environment for one, the developers or the founders who wants to set up company here, or two, the professional investors who are actually going to be a key part of the ecosystem, because for company to be successful, they need to have capital. And three, for talent development, right? So to attract people to come into Singapore, because you cannot just attract the founders to Singapore when they come to Singapore and they have a shortage of talents. And in fact, Web 3.0 is an area that I think is very short of talent. I mean, we're able to bring in some talent from China and India to help Southeast Asia, but overall, I think talent is an issue, okay, for companies operating in this region of Southeast Asia. So our government want to enable three things, right? Good governance for ecosystems, good environment, okay, for founders, investors, and talent. And then recently, we kind of MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore, released two consultancy papers. One is on stablecoin, right? That paper basically reflects how we see this technology benefiting us, okay, when it comes to the payment space, right? And then the other paper that we release is the papers that focus on ensuring that retail investors, ultimately we're going to come to a stage where you have to have retail investors and you need to support the retail investors. And I think recently there's been some bad development, okay, in this space where people have lost a lot of money. A lot of companies and a lot of retail investors get into very high leverage positions that actually becomes quite painful for them, right? So these papers that I talk about are basically things that we do. We have research interest group that actually will look at different areas and they will come up with recommendations to MAS, and MAS will help continue to help to develop the ecosystems so that people will find that Singapore is an attractive place for us to come to. Yeah.
Because when you want to develop an ecosystem, even when you have the support of a country's state, you still have some criteria to invest in these projects. And from your standpoint, what would be the most important things you're looking at to decide if you invest or not in a Web3 project?
Yeah. Okay. I mentioned earlier that we look at investments in two ways. One is because we are big long-term investors and we are diversified investors. For us, it is important that we keep abreast with what is developing in new technologies. So what we do is that we invest through funds, or we invest, and these funds will give us the exposure so that we can learn about the space. And then as we learn about the space, we'll decide what are the areas that we probably can partner with people. Okay? In different countries, we partner with different people to do direct investments. At this juncture, I would say that what is most important for us is that we feel that for business venture to be successful, I mentioned earlier about business model, but at this moment, I would say that there are two areas, right? One is that there are certain Web3 companies that is really Web3 native, but adaptive to existing technology. So it is a space, it is in an industry segment where there is a really strong fundamental needs. But this Web3 technology comes in and say, you know what, with Web3 technologies, we do things differently. So we're disrupting the present, okay, the present that is being served by company not using Web3 technology, right? And the second, so we look at these companies and we say that these are the companies that you certainly can. There's already a need, right? There is already a segment of customers, okay, or businesses they are serving. But it's just that right now, these companies are coming in with Web3 technologies to serve the customers and the business differently. So this is one. The second is that I think in the area of traditional finance, right? There are quite a number of companies that has already figured out how in the finance industries, Web 3.0 can come in and bring a lot of value, right? So those are the two areas. If you ask me, I would say as investors, we put more attention to in terms of investments where we think has scaled and matured enough for us to invest big bucks, okay, to make good returns on investment. Of course, as a space mature, there will be other types of products, right? I mean, gaming is one area that we have been discussing extensively today here, and other genius, and there will be other product genius that will be able to come up with business ideas that would drive adoption of their business ideas from traditional users. I think Caddy mentioned earlier, right? Okay, I mean, Neymar has a lot of fans, right? So these are potential traditional users that you can actually bring to your product area if you are a good product genius with strong execution teams and have the ability to create the products that would leverage the traditional users to flock into your space, right? So I think the space is evolving. There are a couple of matured ones that I talk about, but a couple of new ones that is evolving because the space itself needs to evolve, and a lot of times the space evolves in these two important areas. Right? One, okay, is existing business needs, and the second area is always in the finance space. And then once these two areas okay has got some strong foundation, then new areas okay will be able to come out, right? And people would have the strong faith and trust okay, to also participate either as users, either as investors into these new areas. Yeah,
that's so much interesting. I'm gonna have to. I want to. You know, I just want to have a break to reflect on that. But you know, I'm going to process that later. But that's so much interesting. Thank you very much. I will have some a few more questions coming back to you. And this time, I think I'm gonna take notes because I want to. I want to process to go through this again for my personal culture and let's say acumen. Thank you so much. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. That's very interesting. I'm gonna have a check on that too. I'm going back to Mr. Lowe. I have a new question for you. That would be to the specificity of regions, such as, for example, we highlighted the fact that some governments in the world will be supporting, facilitating, enabling some Web3 projects. In some other countries, it's a little bit more complicated. And just to give you, this is just an example about regulations, but the reception is also different depending on the public. I know that, for example, in France, we have a community who's of players who doesn't enjoy NFTs a lot because they have, you know, French is very specific when it comes to politics, etc. The culture is quite special. So I always have these discussions with old people, like old players, 50-something players playing to still very, very, very traditional games, not even appreciating mobile gaming, for example. And I do think, you know, that I don't, regarding the Southeast Asian market, for example, it's very, very specific when it comes to Web3 projects, obviously. Would you have a highlight about what traits would be important for a new Web3 project that would aim at, you know, entering the Southeast Asian market based on your significant experience?
Over the last 10 years, as we were looking at internet investments, we have always been studying the Southeast Asia market and looking for Southeast Asia champions. One of the key things we really learned is that Southeast Asia, as much as it has 600 million people, and therefore it's a huge market, every country is very different. And Sammy, you rightly pointed out that different countries, the governmental support is going to be very different, right? The level of adoption, okay, of the people in terms of how much they embrace, whether it's in gaming, okay, or in crypto technology, could also be different because the level of the absorption, okay, or penetration, or understanding of this space is different in different countries. So the way I look at it is that if somebody wants to go into Southeast Asia, rather than thinking of, I want to go into Southeast Asia, think of which specific countries do I want to enter first, right? And you choose those countries that ultimately, say, first have the local government support, two, the market. The market itself is important. You need to go to a place that's sizable. Okay? And three, one where you have the ability to find strong local partners. As much or as big as GIC is, when it comes to investment in what we call developing countries, we dare not even want to go in without a local partner, because a local partner understands the inequities of the countries, has the ability to help you to navigate obstacles, and then more importantly, even in terms of getting talent, right? So you can avoid making a lot of mistakes if you have a local partner. I mean, even like simple things like if you want to get a KOL, okay, to promote your business, get the right KOL, right? And has an ability to access the right KOL. All these, you need local partners, right? So one of the important things when it comes to Southeast Asia is that do not look at it as one large market, but look at it as specific countries where you have people on the ground that understand the landscape and the environment. And then as you enter these countries, then you will be able to develop products that ultimately you can bring to, right? There are similarities. I don't want to say that there is no similarities between these places at all, but to think that one product, one team, one stage of development, you can penetrate all of them at the same time is going to be a mistake. But if you can penetrate and do well in one, the lessons that you have from one can easily be ported to another. Okay, and even just on the simple point of the fact that if you in Indonesia and you decide to go to Thailand, the fact that you are successful in Indonesia and you're the right business partner in Indonesia will help you to find the right business partner in Thailand, right? Okay, so all this becomes portable. And one other thing I like to mention that, especially in this so-called digital asset space, right, crypto. For
Yes.
digital asset, it's very difficult to really think just Southeast Asia. What you and whatever you deploy out there needs ultimately to be global.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's the way to go, the default road to go.
Yeah. So even as we think Southeast Asia, from day one, build your technology, build your business model, build your infrastructure in such a way that you can go global, right? So, of course, before going one country, that particular one allows you to propagate to the next Southeast Asia country, but ultimately, your solution needs to be global, right? So, then the last thing, as usual, I mentioned, and I can't stop mentioning it, is talent, right? Every country you go to, whether you win or lose, is going to be about whether you can attract the best talent in that country.
Yes, and we all know that there's a big challenge, a global challenge, a global issue with attracting talents, more specifically, you know, in areas where you need very skilled people with a high, let's say, with a high level of qualification. And I'm specifically referring, for example, here to coders. But yes, this is a a worldwide issue. Thank you so much for that answer. You gave me something else to think about a lot. Require funds. I'm gonna have to come back to Mr. Lau. So we spoke quite a little bit for a little bit of time about, you know, the advice that you would give us to how to assess the investment opportunities that you might have in the Web3 realm. And this is interesting to have your opinion, because we can have a better understanding as, let's say, for me, a project creator, but also for consumers. If I have to bet, let's say, on a Web3 project, these advice are also useful for me. And what advice would you give to Web3 investors? Let's say you meet Web3 investors that would wish at entering in the Web3 realm. What would be a few of your key learnings based on your experience?
Okay, I think I talked a fair bit about that earlier. So let me try to answer this question in a reverse manner, right?
Yeah.
So let me say that if I were a founder, what do I need to do to be able to attract investors? Right. I think that this will be quite interesting for many of you here as well, especially in the current environment, right? So if you are creating a company and you're looking for investors, there could be two diverging paths that you could take. And depending on which path that you take, you attract different type of investor at different times, right? If earlier on you have decided to be a conservative investor or developer or builder, then you'll be in for the long haul. And for that, you get different type of investors. But if you are an aggressive, right, I want to build very quickly, conquer the market, okay, get as many customers as possible, okay, become the big brother of the segment, okay, in your countries or in the area that you're operating, then you will also end up with a different set of customers. So let's focus on the aggressive builder. The aggressive builders were the people that actually were able to get a lot of funding, right, before the tech meltdown. In fact, these are the ones that the investors like. Investors, you know what? Okay, whether it's a SoftBank or wherever, they will come in and they say, you know what? I will give you the money. I want you to build as aggressively as possible, right? Scale,
right.
And there are still aggressive founders who are able to attract even funding in this very difficult time. But the risk here is that you must take off. You must take off very, very quickly, right? Or you, and if you struggle to take off quickly, then besides you run out of funds and you find follow-on funding very difficult, and plus at the same time you have a reputational risk to you and your team in terms of whether if you want to build something else, or you want to get to re-navigate the direction of your development. Now, conservative builders, will take a longer time, but ultimately they will have long-term values. And this type of builders, what I think in this current environment could still attract funding, because the funding that they need is one whereby I would need the fund as I reach my milestone, and I do not need a lot of wasteful funding, right? But and their investors will also be patient investors, right? So these patient investors will actually be your partner in crimes as well. Like, they will help you to grow along the way, and they will be supportive of additional funding, because in the long haul you need a lot of additional funding.
Yes.
Your stage B, your stage C, like your stage D, where you need a lot of fundings because you have scaled to a certain level, these investors will actually stay with you, right?
Like mentors.
And then that I would say that investor look for, and therefore as a builder you need to have, is still the fact that you need connection and relation back into the matured markets like US or even Europe, right? This is where fundamental innovations are taking place.
Yeah.
These fundamental innovations are important. For us here in Asia, in Southeast Asia, it's not likely that we end up setting the standards, right? As the ecosystems develop, a lot of things will probably start to develop first or get adoption first in America, in markets like America, or maybe even in China, right? Because China is a different world by itself, and it's a big world by itself. But for us, in Southeast Asia and the other part of the world outside of China, I think having insight into America, USA and Europe is important. So by answering the question this way, you know, so as an investor, what I'll look for, right? I'll look at a particular asset, a digital asset, in terms and the founders, as whether they are aggressive builder or I want them to be aggressive, and therefore I take a certain type of approach to my fundings of them, or I'm looking for a long haul conservative builder that I know that I'll be betting along with them for the long time, right? And so that's the way I'll think of it. Yeah.
And do you think, speaking of that, because you have a long-term approach, like a smart money approach to not dumb money approach, obviously, and do you think that,
if you ask me, from, let's say, from a GIC perspective, I would say that we would do both, but we will do the former, which is aggressive builder approach, differently from we will do the conservative long-term value approach. The first part, we invest through funds or co-investment with funds. That means people who really knows the industry. So we co-invest with them, right?
Yeah.
And for the latter, if we know the team well enough, we may put in some early seed money, but then subsequently we keep funding them as they continue to need more capital along the way. We would do both, but our approach is a bit different. Yeah.
And do you think, in the context of a bear market, for example, would you think that there are still, is this a good moment, to invest? Because we don't know
Yeah,
if it's good to invest during a bull, during a bull market or a bear market. What would you say in 30 seconds regarding this? What's your opinion?
this is difficult time. I mean,
Yeah,
let's be honest, right? Okay. So funding is going to be harder to come by. So for and the money that flows into aggressive builders, okay, are getting a lot more careful right now. So it will be assets that actually people see long-term value, right? Assets where they can progressively fund you as you meet your milestones to
yeah,
be the one that you will see more people willing to put money in, right? The earlier days, okay, of hey, I like the team. It looks like a good idea. They're aggressive enough. I'm going to put money in there, and I want them to grow very fast. Okay, those so-called Masayoshi Son approach to people are a little bit more careful about doing those kind of investment today. Yeah. So similarly, if you want to go out there to get funding, you have to you need to know what approach you want to take. Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for all this information. I think that we had a very interesting exchange about what's currently going on in the Web3 space. Perhaps now would be a good time for everyone here. I mean, our guests to have maybe a freer moment to talk about their projects and their activities, and if they have some things that they really want to share with the audience regarding their opinions about what's currently going on in Web3, messages that they want heard. That would be amazing. Maybe we that's just a suggestion, obviously, but maybe we can start with you, Kevin. If you have something to share with people, a message that you want to share, impressions, feelings, analysis, anything you feel comfortable sharing, that would be great. Mr. Lowe, would you have anything
No.
that you would like to share?
Well, first I would say that thank you for having me.
That's an honor.
Someone who's been in this industry for a long time. I continue to mentor, and I like to see young people engaging in new areas. And if what I said today is of any help in your advancement of your project, then I would be very thankful that I was able to do that.
It's clearly helpful, really. Thank you so much. Speaking of the project here regarding Koyé, I just want to give a little bit of a heads up that's very modest here. I'm not going to take a long time to talk about that, but currently what happened is that the Koyé's team decided to spend 80% of the tax revenue of the game upfront on buybacks to facilitate the management of the market value of Mini Koyé. So that was not the easiest path, I would say, but I do think, and that's we tend to talk a lot about our values at Koyé, and one of these values is that there are no shortcuts, and this is not the way we want to live our lives. So it's logical that it also translates to our business and financial decisions. I'm giving this to you in a quite an unstructured way. We have invitation rebates that are coming along for people because we want to thank them and we want them to engage if they have enthusiasm about the game, the community, the project, the roadmap. We want to facilitate them inviting people they truly appreciate early on. We will keep on dropping airdrops randomly, official airdrops. And this is also a big occasion for me to tell you that we will distribute some of Neymar's beast list for the holder. So you can check your wallets from time to time to see if you have received it. That's something really big that we want that we are very proud to put in place to reward the people who have been putting some trust in our project. We also want to tell people that we're going to implement the preemptive rights for that's a new feature, but preemptive right for subsequent Koyéverse projects, because as you know, Koyé is part of a larger project, umbrella project. I would say that would be the Koyéverse projects. So maybe several games, maybe some other products than games, etc., etc. We really do want to create something consistent, solid, with substance that would be able to not distract but entertain people while leveraging what Web3 has to offer, obviously. And we will also introduce in-game rights, which means that you will be able to obtain more gold, and you will have a higher rates to get NFT fragments. So these are some of the things that we are currently implementing. These were just, this was just in order here to take advantage maybe of the AMA to announce that some features are coming up and that we are still thinking about the best way to reward the people who are honoring us with their trust. So, and one last thing regarding the progress of the project, and I think this is something that will interest many people here, to be very, very practical. We have launched the NFT collection on OpenSea, of course, and the Koyé game will be online, released in December. So this is in only a few weeks. And yes, we couldn't be happier about that. I think I'm good on my side. Yes, I'm good on my side. I really want to thank again, one last time, the guests who have taken the time during what must be probably a very busy day to exchange, to discuss, to give some insights about, to give out interesting information, interesting releases. I want to thank all the people who are currently putting some trust in the project. This is not something we treat lightly from the beginning, from early on. I mean, there's something at stake here, and you don't want people to trust you just to to not to honor your promises. So this is something we don't take lightly at all. Obviously, I hope that you will be able to monitor and to have a look at the NFT collection on OpenSea, that you will have a look at the games release only in a few weeks. I also encourage all the people here to have a look at what our guests have been announcing regarding upcoming projects that they have and upcoming initiatives too. And I think that's mostly all for me. So I think if we're good here, we are going to close the session. I hope we will find each other again for some more sessions in the following weeks. And I would like once again to thank everyone here for attending.